Hi everyone. Today we are going to be labeling the heart on your diagram on page 4 in your notes. So I just wanted to start by saying I'm going to be using two different colors. So if you guys see red writing, please make sure you write it down in red, and that's going to represent blood that is oxygenated, which just means that it has high amounts of oxygen in it. If I use blue writing, that means that it's deoxygenated, which just means low oxygen. So you guys have this diagram in your notes on page 4 if you can turn to that page. And we're going to be going through the parts of the heart. I always start in the same place and I label the diagram in the same order. So it's not going to correspond with the numbers in order. I'm going to just always label it in the same way so that if you look at a different diagram that's slightly different than this one, okay, if you label them always in the same order, it should help you kind of remember the labels a little bit easier. So we're going to start on the label 2. This is pointing to the superior vena cava. And the superior vena cava is coming, it's the huge blood vessel, it's a vein, so it's going towards the heart, and it's bringing all of the blood back from our body cells. So we've just used all of the oxygen in our blood in cellular respiration and put in a bunch of carbon dioxide. So the superior vena cava is carrying deoxygenated blood, which is represented by blue. The inferior vena cava is bringing blood as well from the body. This is going to be from below the heart. Superior is going to be bringing blood from above the heart. Superior means above, inferior means below, and then vena cava just means large vein. It's the giant vein leading back to our heart. So that leads into this chamber up here, number 7, which is called the right atrium. So when the blood comes into this chamber, it's going to fill this chamber, and then when the walls of this chamber contract, it pushes the blood down. Okay, so it's going to go through number 8, which is the tricuspid AV valve, AV as in atrioventricular, because number 9 is the ventricle. So the AV valve gets pushed open when the walls of the atrium contract, and then the blood gets pushed down into the ventricle. And as the blood pools in the ventricle, it's going to cause the AV valve to slowly come up like this and then eventually stop. And these cords are called chordae tendineae, basically prevent the AV valve from going backwards into the atrium. They just need to stop right here and prevent the blood when the ventricle contracts from going back into the atrium. It wants to go up through this section. So those cords are just preventing the AV valve from going backwards. It should only be stopping right here. So again, the ventricles are going to contract the wall, and it's going to shoot the blood up this direction through number 6, which is the pulmonary semilunar valve. Pulmonary means lungs, so we're sending it to the lungs. So it's going up the pulmonary semilunar valves, okay, through the pulmonary trunk, and then the pulmonary trunk branches to the right and the left pulmonary arteries. Okay, so the left pulmonary artery would be going to the left lung, and the right pulmonary artery is going to the right lung. After it goes through the lungs, it's going to then have gas exchange occurring, so we're going to take all of that carbon dioxide that's in the deoxygenated blood, which is represented by the blue words, and it's going to become oxygenated, okay, which means that it just has high levels of oxygen and low levels of carbon dioxide. So now it's coming back to our heart through these vessels right here, number 17, the left pulmonary vein and the right pulmonary vein, which lead into this structure right here, number 16, which is the left atrium. Okay, once the atrium walls contract, they're going to go through the bicuspid AV valve. Okay, this one only has 2 flaps, so we call bicuspid, bi means 2, and then tricuspid on this side back there was because there's 3 flaps on this one. So on the left side of the heart, you only have 2 flaps. So it's going to go through that structure into the left ventricle. The left ventricle is going to squeeze the blood through the aortic semilunar valve, which leads to the aorta. Okay, so this structure right here is going up, which means it's ascending, it's going up. That's why we call it the ascending aorta. And then below our heart, so it travels all the way along the back of our heart, and it goes to the descending aorta. So that is all of the structures of our heart, except for this structure that separates the 2 sides of the heart, the deoxygenated and the oxygenated parts, by the septum, which is just this wall in the middle. You're going to actually draw some arrows. The arrows are going to go through the heart just like the blood goes through it. So starting in the superior and inferior vena cava, it's going to go into the right atrium. The right atrium is going to squeeze causing the AV valve to open, and it's going to end up in the right ventricle. The ventricle is going to squeeze, causing it to go through the semilunar valve, up the pulmonary trunk, and out towards the lungs from the pulmonary artery, so the right and the left side. It's going to be in our lungs. We do gas exchange. And then once it comes back from our lungs, it's going to go through the right veins, the pulmonary veins, into our left atrium. The atrium is going to contract. It's going to go through the bicuspid AV valve into the left ventricle. The ventricle will contract. It's going to go through the aortic semilunar valve, up the ascending aorta, and out those little vessels that lead to our neck and our arms, and then down the back of our heart through the descending aorta. So you guys do need to know these labels for your heart quiz that you're doing before you dissect the heart. So make sure you practice these labels as well as the arrows. So underneath that, you guys also have space that you can write the words in order of how the blood is flowing through your body / your heart. So we're going to draw a little flow chart that you guys can draw at the bottom of page 4. So starting again in the superior and inferior vena cava, we're going to go through the right atrium. Okay, the right atrium is then going to lead to the tricuspid AV valve, which leads to the right ventricle, which is going to lead to the pulmonary semilunar valve. Once the pulmonary semilunar valves open, we're going to the right and left pulmonary arteries, which takes it to the lungs. This is where gas exchange is occurring. So now we're going to have oxygenated blood, and we're going to come back to the heart through the right and the left pulmonary veins, which are going to lead into the left atrium. Okay, the left atrium contracts and causes it to go through the AV valve, but this time it's the bicuspid AV valve because it only has 2. And that's going to lead to the left ventricle, which then gets squeezed, and we go through the aortic semilunar valve into the aorta, which is the ascending and descending if it's going to go up or down. And that's leading to our body cells, where we're again going to exchange gases. This time we're going to send all the oxygen into our body cells, and we're going to get rid of all the carbon dioxide that was just created in our body cells, send it back to our heart through the superior and inferior vena cava. So if you guys notice, on the body cells, we're going to be doing internal respiration like we just learned in chapter 7, and on the lungs right here, that's where we're doing external respiration. So you guys do need to know both of these things. It's the same thing, but just in different ways. This is the flow chart versus the actual heart diagram with the arrows. So make sure you study this lots and lots, and you will have a quiz on this tomorrow. So have a great night. Good luck studying. If you have any questions, let me know.